Hunting. For many of us, it's a way of life, and we take it very seriously. We spend countless hours scouting, checking trail cameras, shooting our bows, and preparing our equipment. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to the moment of truth, hunting is a game of the mind. Over the last 6 years, I have killed 7 bucks, 6 of those with a bow. While I am grateful for the success, for the most part, these bucks have been younger bucks. This year, I was convinced that I would hold out for something bigger, especially since for the first time in years, I had a good buck that was not just passing through, but was consistently on my cameras. Now, I knew that in order for me to be prepared to pass up those smaller bucks, I had to prepare myself mentally for a decision that wouldn't be easy to make in the moment. As the rut rolled around, I was eager for the opportunity to test my resolve. I was encouraged when I had an encounter with the big buck. He was out of range, but I knew I was in his core area. However, when a friend of mine killed that buck 2 days later, my resolve to hold out for a big buck slowly began to fade. Hunt after hunt ended in frustration with failed opportunities. I was seeing plenty of bucks, but just couldn't get them into range or get a clear shot opportunity. Then when I learned that I would have to leave the whitetail woods for nearly a week during the peak of the rut due to a family emergency, all resolve faded. With only 2 days left to hunt, I immediately felt the immense pressure to succeed, to make the countless hours in the woods count for something. That Monday morning, I sighted 4 bucks. One of them is the buck that I called the Wide 7, and he was with a hot doe. And for a brief moment, it looked like he was going to come straight through my shooting lane at 25 yards, when both he and the doe turned and walked straight away from the tree without a shot opportunity. Tuesday morning found me in the same tree hoping for more action, and the rut did not disappoint. Shortly after daylight, we saw several does, and just a few minutes later, we sighted a buck with a doe. They stayed well out of range, but eventually they bedded down just 90 yards away. Now, my plan was not to do an all-day hunt, but I was determined that if I needed to stay there all day, I would do it in hopes that at some point they would get up, move around, and end up under our tree. Now, a few hours later, I saw a spike coming down the trail of that hot doe, and sure enough, the bigger buck stood up to make sure that spike didn't get anywhere near his lady. In the process, he came actually within about 60 yards as he was chasing that spike off, the closest he had been all morning. Now, it was at this point that I should have realized the way the pressure was affecting my mental game, because I began ranging trees and considering taking shots that were well outside of my normal maximum range of 30 yards. Now, he never came close enough for a shot opportunity, but this should have been a warning that I was not on top of my mental game. After the spike left the area, the bigger buck went and laid back down for a little while, but then eventually he and the doe worked their way over the crest of the hill. Now again, it wasn't my intention to be out there all day, so I decided this was an opportunity to get down out of the tree without spooking them. My plan was to try to sneak up to the crest of that hill and peek over just in case they had moved just a few yards over the hill and decided to rebed. With crunchy leaves, this seemed like it would take a miracle. Now, as it turned out, I didn't find the bigger buck, but I did encounter a buck from the ground.
Well, I got maybe halfway down to where I was trying to get to, maybe, and I saw deer movement just over the crest of the hill. So I kind of just stayed for a minute, and all of a sudden I see another deer, and here's a buck. It's a different buck coming up over the hill. And I'm right in the middle of like an open trail area, just wide open, with one tree between me and him. And I look, and I'm like, well, it looks like he's going to come up this trail. So I waited, and I saw his shadow coming. I drew, And he came out and he started crossing me like this. I thought, well, once he gets over here, he's going to be broadside, I'll stop him. Well, then he noticed me and he turned straight toward me. And to be perfectly honest with you, I did something that I knew I shouldn't have done. I knew it in the moment, but I let the pressure of trying to kill a buck get to me, and the days that have slipped by without getting an opportunity, I let that pressure get to me, and I took a full-on frontal shot. To be perfectly honest with you, it was an unknown distance. I knew he was relatively close, but not as close as he should have been for an alert deer looking right at me on a frontal shot. I should not have taken the shot. I'm embarrassed kind of to admit that I took it. As soon as I shot, he whirled, and I thought I hit him way back, like in the back hip or something like that. I couldn't tell, no pass through. He went crashing off with the arrow. Came back up here, climbed up in the tree, and Pastor Nathaniel from the tree had gotten some footage of the shot. It looks like my lighted knock may have hit him behind the shoulder, but it's a super steep quartering shot. If that's the case, it probably is a lethal shot, but trying to find him is going to be a challenge, and knowing how long to wait is going to be a challenge. Probably going to be really hard blood trailing. No exit hole, high entry. I don't know. We'll see. Stick with us. We'll find out together. Well, as you can see, I did actually have success in harvesting this deer from this morning. I did not film anything of the process because, to be honest with you, I did not think we were going to find this deer. It was a shot I shouldn't have taken. It looked bad. It felt bad. And to be honest with you, looked at the camera footage and it looked like I hit it in the scapula and maybe deflected and got very poor penetration. So I wasn't sure if I even entered the body cavity from the footage or if maybe I had gone into the body cavity with poor penetration. Just didn't know. And so we gave it 5 hours. We came back out. Could not find a drop of blood. Could not find the arrow anywhere. And so we just started moving in the direction we thought it went, hoping to find the arrow and pick up its trail. And all of a sudden I hear Pastor Nathaniel call out, "Hey, I found it." And I'm thinking he's talking about the arrow. And he says, "No, I think I found the deer." And sure enough, it hadn't gone 100 yards and was laying there. So what I want to say to you, though, is that I messed up. And it worked out okay this time, but it still doesn't negate the fact that I messed up. I took a shot that even in the moment I knew I shouldn't take. I knew it was a high-risk shot, low probability shot. In hindsight, it was actually a farther shot than what I normally would take, combined with a high-risk, low probability shot. It was just a shot I never should have taken. But I can say this: you may believe in luck or some other force of nature. I believe in God, and I believe that He, not always, but sometimes chooses to bless us in spite of our mess-ups. That's called graciousness. And that's one of my favorite attributes about God is His grace. And in this particular situation, it doesn't always work out this way, but He chose to bless in spite of my big mess up. And I cannot think of another reason why we found this deer with no blood, no arrow, and a very poor shot, other than that God just chose to bless me today.
Looking back, I can see how I started losing the mental game of hunting days before the shot. As frustrations and discouragement and pressure started to build, it began to affect my decision making, which ultimately led me to take a shot that I never should have taken. I'm glad that it worked out in my favor this time, but there certainly is no pride in a poorly placed shot that just happened to work out well. But in a game of the mind, what can you do but take what you learned and strive to play the game better next season? Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, remember to get off YouTube and get outdoors into God's great creation.